Okay, thank you guys for, meeting with me again today. I know we've had several meetings, but I wanted to kind of touch bases with you again, on, what we're doing right now in regards to implementing the intervention and enrichment lessons during that advisory period. I know that you've been looking over the data. Can you share with me, and going into the classroom, can you share with me what you're seeing so far?
Yeah, so when I'm going into the English rooms in particular, we're seeing the teachers do a lot more work with grammar, really focusing on specific TEKs that are easy to target for STAR. You know, I always tell the teachers it's kind of like low-hanging fruits of working on punctuation, capitalization, spelling, sentence construction. So they're really focusing on those TEKs, and that's where we have struggled historically in a lot of our data. And then when I go into our math rooms with the other math coordinator, I'm also seeing them working on some of the multiplication, division, some of those maybe 1 or 2 grade levels behind of where some of the gaps are showing in, again, the TEKs, but also just in the daily instruction that the teachers are seeing. So they're targeting more of those low skills that the students need more work on. So, and we're seeing, again, just constant practice and retrieval on all those skills.
Okay, and I know that you're working with the math and ELR teachers, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, on those lessons. So how has that been going?
Yes, we met with the teachers during professional development, just so that we could clarify the RTI process and the implementation of the program. We also set clear roles and responsibilities so that everybody will be aware of what their contribution is and what their responsibilities are. We also made sure everyone understood the process. We made sure teachers were supported by placing all of the strategies and providing information and activities out on the Campus Hub website.
Okay, and so were there, I know that you're working with the ELR teachers, and you as well have been going into the classroom with the ELR teachers.
Yeah.
But I know there's been kind of a little struggle with the math. How has that been going with, as far as that math team lead?
With the math team lead, we have worked on executing the strategies to support those struggling learners.
Okay.
And so that's one of the things that we've kind of tried to focus on is those learners that are struggling.
Okay, thank you. And so I know that the last part of that was our Monday lessons was with SEL, and then I know that you've been taking the lead in regards to our behavioral RTI. So can you share with us that process?
Yeah, so for the Monday SEL lessons, we took the end of the year data from our survey, our campus culture survey last year, and we got together as a counseling group and determined what lessons we needed to use to target those areas that the students were indicating they were struggling with. And then we also used our the beginning of the year assessment from our program that we use and our middle of the year assessment to determine the groups that how the students that scored high risk in certain areas, we made small groups for them and they're being met with during our advisory period as well. And then for the behavior, the students who are showing a lot of discipline, chronic issues within the same areas, or they have consistent behavior problems, we are going to be meeting with them one-on-one as well.
That's
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you guys all have the paper that I gave you guys when we first came in. I would like for you to be able to look over that. We don't have to look over everything tonight, but if you'll do me a favor, just look over it. And then on that Google Doc that we're sharing, if you just go in and just make any kind of notes so that the next time that we come together, things that you see, things that we probably need to improve on, just as you look at this data that we have in front of us, any information that you want to share or that we need to discuss in the next meeting, I would greatly appreciate if you just share that in there so that we all can come take a look at it. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that we need to probably get accomplished before our next meeting?
Nothing I can think of.
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, again, thank you guys for meeting today, and just make sure that you look over this when you have a chance. I know that we have a lot of things that we got going on, but if you can look at it and just share that information on that Google Doc, I will greatly appreciate it. Okay?
Yeah,
Thank you guys, I
definitely.
greatly
Thank you.
appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
and because of your background as an instructional coach
Right.
and with the growth that you had with ELAR, I wanted to bring you in because you've been working with our ELAR lead teacher. But I wanted to kind of ask you some questions about how you feel like the RTI process has been going. So how effective were you in collaborating with our ELAR and math teachers during this RTI process?
Yeah, I think we spent a lot of time in PLCs talking about the kinds of lessons we were going to do, prioritizing targeted TEKs like grammar and ELAR, which I've always liked to call low-hanging fruit. And we were really taking a lot of time looking at what were those easy writing and punctuation and technical TEKs, prioritizing those for ELAR and spending a lot of time in the lessons in those. And so the teachers did a great job of targeting those, coming up with lessons, doing lots of writing. And then similarly for math, we were looking at a lot of the TEKs where the students are having weaknesses from prior years. So like multiplication facts, basic numeracy, counting by 5s or 10s, or all those kinds of things. So our tier 2 and tier 3 teachers, they spent a lot of time looking at those weaknesses that are kind of causing issues on the current grade level TEKs, like for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then really taking the time to fill in those gaps in that tier 2 and tier 3 instruction during our advisory time. And yeah, I think the teachers really did a great job in just identifying the weaknesses, coming up with specific targeted lessons, on a weekly basis with the kids. And I think it's really been pretty effective. We've seen some growth, especially in a lot of the math data. And the teachers are feeling more comfortable. They feel like the kids are really grasping those concepts that they should have had a few years ago. So I think it's been pretty successful.
That's good. And I know that you worked with the teachers in the IC with organizing how you guys were going to come up with the lessons and how you guys scheduled on those lessons. Can you just kind of tell me a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so we were going on a bi-weekly program where every other week they do targeted small group intervention and instruction, again, targeting those TEKs where the kids are having the biggest weaknesses and coming up with specific lessons, small group instruction, pair and share, stuff like that. And then on other weeks, we have a state-approved digital resource that the kids can, again, get targeted TEK instruction. The teachers can not only give the kids a specific code that ties to a TEK that they want them to prioritize and work on, but then the program will also give the kids individualized and like a tailored program that they can go through themselves. And then during that time, the math teachers in particular, are walking around, giving the kids feedback, working on the problems with them, doing some small group as well during those weeks. And with ELAR, it's a lot of, again, just really prioritizing those, again, like I call low-hanging fruit TEKs, mechanics, spelling, punctuation, because that's something, again, that's easy to get fast correction on the digital technique, and the teachers can, again, walk around and give feedback immediately as well.
And that was some of the things that we've seen in those walkthroughs. So I was wanting to know, just kind of want you to touch bases on that. And how do you feel like the teachers, just from your perspective, how do you feel like the teachers have done with those lessons, especially those teachers that are non-content teachers? I know you've gone into some classrooms, I've gone in as well. I kind of just want your feedback on what you saw with those non-content teachers with those enrichment lessons.
Oh, the enrichment lessons. Yeah, so one really cool thing was our teachers really did a great job. I went to, like, say, our Spanish teacher and asked our Spanish teacher to come up with a fun Spanish lesson for 1 week for our intervention kids. Our art teacher to do a lesson on like art history or like a famous artist that they really love and enjoy. And so those content teachers outside of math and ELAR really did an awesome job of finding things that they're passionate about, coming up with a lesson that takes a day or two. And they do that with those kids during that 2-day lesson after they do their SEL lessons on Mondays. And I feel like it's been really successful. So like there's been things of like, I know our PE teachers, they did this really cool lesson on statistics of like your likelihood to get into a professional sport. So that was a great, math. And that's what we encouraged them was, hey, if you can prioritize reading, writing, and even some math, that's even better. It's like, again, PE teachers did an awesome job with that.
Yes, they have.
So I'm thinking of some other ones. I know, again, our Spanish teacher did a cool one on like Spanish culture over like in Spain and in Mexico. So that was really neat. So just some really cool stuff like that. And again, the idea is again to build our kids' knowledge, because the number one thing that determines a kids' reading ability outside of decoding is their background knowledge. And so we've done a lot of work with the teachers on that, just really prioritizing, are you targeting background knowledge? Are you targeting their prior knowledge, to help them access content even in those enrichment lessons and in the intervention lessons too.
Good. And what strategies have been more effective, do you feel that you've observed have been more effective in supporting the students academically? I'm going to ask
Yeah.
about behavior as well, but just first off, touch on the academics that you feel like, just with talking to the teachers and working with the teachers, what do you feel like has one of the strategies you feel has been most effective?
One really great idea, it was kind of a co-team idea from one of the math teachers and our math instructional coordinator, was to get flashcards. So every day before they go into CIO time, regardless of if they're an enrichment kid, an intervention for math, or an intervention for ELAR, our teachers stand outside the door with a set of flashcards, and the kiddo has to correctly answer the multiplication fact before they can come into the room. So, and the research shows just doing sometimes like a small 1-2 minute refresh on a daily basis is one of the best ways to implant that idea or that concept into long-term memory. And so I feel like that's been really successful. Even again, some of our non-math teachers have really enjoyed that, right? Like they kind of get to refresh math, they get to see the kids do it. And I think that's been really successful, again, targeting those low-level skills that some of our kids are weak in. Even sometimes our stronger kids sometimes don't have their math facts as automatic as we would like them to be. Also, again, the right across the curriculum, our teachers, we created a plan where all the teachers, at least once per 9 weeks, they're doing a focused writing lesson in their class period.
Yes.
So I know one of our math teachers has done an amazing job of giving the kids sentence stems on a regular basis to help the kids remember and conceptualize the skills and concepts. So that's been really cool to see. Again, a lot of our, obviously we have classes like ESL and Spanish and even in band, they're doing a lot of writing because those kids have to be able to think about, talk about, write about, read about their content in those classes. And so I feel like that's been really successful. And then again, the digital platform we use where the kids can get targeted help, the teacher can do targeted lessons for those kids individually, and it's a pretty low threshold, pretty easy to implement, but can have a high return because the kids can get through like 30, 40, 50 questions in 20 minutes time. So and get immediate feedback over and over again. So that I feel like that's been really successful and lots of strong implementation from the teachers.
And if you had to speak on the behavior, I know that we've been working with our counselors and they've been doing the small groups, pulling those students to work on based on specific behavior. What strategy or what have you even spoken to the counselor in regards to that? I know you've been working more on the academic side with the team and we've been meeting about that, but what about the behavior side? Is there anything that you saw, a strategy you saw that was effective?
Yeah, one that I really like that one of our lead counselor has been doing is more conflict resolution. So like thinking about talking through, it's like, hey, you perceived it this way, but could it have been this way? Helping the kids to kind of become less egocentric and kind of understand where another perspective is from or how they're coming off, talking with the kids about, hey, you may not feel like what you're saying is rude or disrespectful, but like think about if I wrote this out, how this would come across to somebody, or if you were to say this to your mom or dad, how would this come across? So it's getting the kids to again be more self-reflective and just understanding they may not think they're being rude, they may not think they're coming at a teacher, coming at an authority figure at a raised level, but just helping them be more metacognitive. And I know our counselor has been working on that a bunch with the kids.
So moving forward, what needs to be our focus moving forward, just based off all the things that we've kind of implemented and put in place now? Is there anything that you can think of? It may not be, it may be anything you think of that we need to probably focus a little bit more on, so that when we meet with the teachers the next time, like something that we can just really
I think behaviorally, helping the kids understand context, time and place. Horseplay is not a bad thing in and of itself, but it's not appropriate in the hallways. So I think, and that's one thing, again, a lot of the principals we've been talking with the kids about, the counselors, even teachers, like in SEL lessons, Academically, I think again, it's filling in a lot of those low-level gaps. Reading and specifically writing in ELAR and multiplication and division facts in math. I think again, there's still a lot of weakness in there, and that
So
we have.
continue to focus on those things.
Yeah.
Okay.